Hi guys, welcome to the channel of love. Okay, we're going to get on with our study group session. We are reading How to Raise Your Own Salary by Napoleon Hill. We are on chapter 4, which is called Employ Applied Faith. Chapter 4. I ended on this quote on the opposite page, which says cooperation and friendship are two assets that can be had only by first giving them. Okay, so employ applied faith. Let's make sure I'm recording. We are. Are we employing applied faith? Okay. Chapter 4. Hill. Can I develop the faith necessary to carry me over the obstacles with which I shall likely meet during my research? Carnegie. My answer will describe perhaps the most important of the 17 principles of achievement. It is applied faith. And it is one factor of human achievement which gives power to all who apply it. It is the great equalising force which truly makes all men equal. Hill. Am I to understand you to say, Mr. Carnegie, that all men are born equal? Do you mean that men who have great self-reliance are born with that trait? Carnegie. Now let me get you straightened out on this vital point before you make the same mistake that so many others have made of assuming that individuals who achieve outstanding success are born with some peculiar quality of genius not possessed by others. Self-confidence is a state of mind that is under the control of the individual, and it is an inborn trait possessed by some and it is not an inborn trait possessed by some and lacking in others. There are varying degrees of self-confidence, the reason for which I will explain later. Supreme self-confidence is based upon faith in infinite intelligence, and you may be certain that no one ever attains this state of mind without having a definite belief in infinite intelligence and establishing contact with it. The starting point in the development of self-confidence is definiteness of purpose. That is why this principle was given first place in the philosophy of individual achievement. It is a well-known fact that the man who knows exactly what he wants, has a definite plan for getting it, and is actually engaged in carrying out that plan, has no difficulty in believing in his own ability to succeed. It is equally well known that the man of indecision, the fellow who flounders around and procrastinates, soon loses confidence in his own ability and winds up by doing nothing. There is nothing difficult to understand about this. Hill. But what happens when one knows what he wants, has a plan for getting it, puts his plan into operation and meets with failure? Doesn't failure destroy self-confidence? Carnegie. That is the very question I hoped you would ask. It gives me an opportunity to set you right on a common mistake that many people make. Failure has one peculiar benefit that is deserving of emphasis, and it is the fact that every failure carries with it, in the circumstance of the failure itself, the seed of an equivalent advantage. Examine the records of the truly great leaders in all walks of life, and you will discover that their success is in exact proportion to their mastery of failures. Life has a way of developing strength and wisdom in individuals through temporary defeat and failure, and do not overlook the fact that there is no such reality as a permanent failure until an experience has been accepted as such. The power of the mind is so great that it has no limitations other than those which individuals set up in their own minds. The power that removes all limitations from the mind is faith, and I have emphasised the fact that the source of all faith is belief in infinite intelligence. Once you have reached an understanding of this truth, you will not need to worry about self-confidence, for you will possess it in abundance. Hill. Most people are not experienced philosophers and they are not going to believe that every failure carries with it the seed of an equivalent, I keep wanting to say equal, equivalent advantage when failure overtakes them. What I want to know is this: what is one going to do when he meets with failure and the experience destroys his confidence in himself? To whom does such a person turn for aid in the restoration of confidence in himself? Carnegie, your question, at first, appears to be one that is very difficult to answer, but the appearance is deceiving, as I shall explain. Let me answer you briefly in this way. The best way to guard against being overcome by failure is to discipline the mind to meet failure before it arrives. This can best be accomplished by forming habits that enable one to take full possession of his mind and use it for the attainment of definite ends on all occasions, from the smallest to the greatest daily task. Hill, Mr. Carnegie, how does one go about taking possession of his own mind as you suggest? Carnegie, the answer to that question is the burden of this entire philosophy, as no one may take complete possession of his mind until he assimilates and puts into action the entire 17 principles of this philosophy. The starting point, as I have stated, is the adoption of a definite major purpose. The second step consists of the formation of a mastermind alliance. The third step is the development of an attractive personality with which one may properly relate himself to the members of his mastermind group and with others who are essential in the achievement of his major purpose. The fourth step consists of a form of mental discipline, which we have designated as applied faith, the details of which we are now analysing. Faith is the power that gives effectiveness to the other three principles, and it is a state of mind that anyone can develop and use. Hill, is there a law or formula behind the principle of faith, which a person may lay hold of and follow through to a definite end? Carnegie, before beginning the analysis of the formula through which faith is acquired, let me remind you that there is a law known as the Law of Harmonious Attraction, through the operation of which like attracts like. With the aid of this law, the successful man, either deliberately or unknowingly, makes his own mind success conscious by vitalising it with a keen desire for the achievement of his major purpose. It is a known fact that men of great achievement form the habit of making an obsession of their definite major purpose. In extreme cases, this obsession becomes intensified until it reaches the proportion of self-hypnosis. Hill, how does one go about the development of that state of mind which you mention as an obsession? Carnegie, it is accomplished by adopting a definite purpose or plan and backing it with a burning desire for its realisation. Here the habit of repetition of thought comes into action. The habit may be developed by making the object of one's plan or purpose the dominating thought of the mind. If the desire back of the plan or purpose is strong enough, it will have the effect of calling into the mind a picture of the object of the purpose and of dwelling upon that picture at all times when the mind is not occupied with less important subjects. This is the way that all obsessions are developed. The more one thinks and talks of an idea or plan, the nearer it comes to being an obsession. Here the mastermind roundtable discussions become powerful factors in vitalising one's mind with the necessary obsessional quality. Hill, I have heard it said that a man comes finally to believe anything he repeats often, even though it is a falsehood, and some of the political I don't know this word, demagorges seem to capitalise on this principle. Carnegie, that's quite true. The principle of repetition to the medium through which one may fan his desires into a burning flame of intensity. Any thought that is expressed orally and continuously repeated from day to day through mastermind discussions and otherwise will be taken over by the subconscious mind eventually and carried out to its logical conclusion. All great leaders who make life pay on their own terms, through what the world commonly calls success, do so by giving orders to their own minds in the manner I have suggested. The mind can take and carry out orders, just as if it were a person, and it will act first upon one's dominating thoughts, whether or not they are given as direct orders. Thoughts of limitation and poverty will be carried out to their logical conclusion, which is poverty. The subconscious mind acts on one's thoughts without trying to modify or change their nature in the least. Moreover, it acts automatically, whether or not one is conscious of this action. Hill. If I understand you clearly, Mr. Carnegie, one can develop self-confidence by thinking in terms of what one desires to do and can do, and by excluding thoughts of the difficulties one may encounter in carrying out one's plans. Carnegie, you have the idea precisely. While I was working as a labourer, I heard a fellow worker say, "I hate poverty and I'll not endure it." He is still doing day labour, and lucky to have a job. You see, he fixed his mind on poverty, and that is what his subconscious mind gave him. It would have been different if he had said, "I enjoy riches and I shall earn and receive them." It would have helped too if he had gone still one step further and described what sort of service he intended to give in return for the riches he desired. Hill. Then the mind brings up the physical equivalent of that which it dwells upon. Carnegie, make no mistake about the fact that it does so, and brings it by the shortest, most economical and practical means available, by using every opportunity to achieve the object of one's desires. Hill. What is the effect of two or more people joining the forces of their minds and working harmoniously for the attainment of their definite purpose? Carnegie. They attain the object of that purpose much more quickly than they could if they worked independently. When the leaders in a business organisation begin to think, talk and act together in a spirit of harmony, they generally get that which they seek. It is true that people can talk and think themselves into anything they desire. Thoughts are things, and powerful things at that. They are more powerful when expressed in the words of an individual who knows exactly what he wants, and more powerful still when they are expressed in the words of a group of people who think, speak, and act together. Hill. From what you have said, Mr. Carnegie, I understand that when the people of a community or a nation begin to think and act in connection with any definite objective, they soon find ways and means of attaining it. Carnegie. That is not only my belief, but it is a fact. If the newspapers begin to publish stories about wars, and the people begin to think and talk of war in their daily conversations, they soon find themselves at war. People get that which their minds dwell upon, and this applies to a group or a community or a nation of people, the same as to an individual. One reason why we Americans are the richest and the freest people in the world, and perhaps this is the only reason, is the fact that we think and talk and act in terms of freedom and riches. Our nation was literally born of our desire for liberty. Our history books are filled with the spirit of liberty. We have talked of liberty so much that we have it in abundance. We shall cease to have it if we stop talking and thinking about it. Hill. Mr. Carnegie, can you give me an illustration of how people get that about which they think and talk? Carnegie. Why, just go back to the history of this country and study the events that led up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Here you will discover something that most students of history overlook entirely, namely, the real source of the power that enabled George Washington's armies to win over vastly superior and better equipped armies. The power of which I speak is the power that began in the form of a definite purpose in the minds of a few men. It extended itself through the mastermind relationships of these men until it gave this country the liberty and freedom we now enjoy. Hill: well, Mr. Carnegie, this is certainly a new story for me. Tell me how it came about, if you please. Carnegie: it started definitely with three men, John Hancock, Samuel Adams, and Richard Henry Lee, who communicated freely, mostly by correspondence, expressing their views and hopes regarding the freedom of the colonies. From this practice, Samuel Adams conceived the idea that a mutual exchange of letters between the prominent people of the 13 colonies might help to bring about the coordination of effort so badly needed to solve their common problems. Accordingly, a committee of correspondence was organised. This move increased the power of the mastermind alliance of the three men by adding to it men from all the colonies. These three men did not content themselves by merely writing letters, but they kept up the agitation by correspondence until it led finally to the historic meeting in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, at which 56 men signed their names to the document that was destined to give birth to a new nation, the Declaration of Independence. They were motivated by an active faith. Hill: this is a thrilling chapter of our history indeed, Mr. Carnegie. Was it actually that simple? Carnegie: it was far from simple, but the principles at work are simple. While the letter writing programme was going on, Samuel Adams and John Hancock called a secret meeting of their close friends for the purpose of outlining the steps necessary to translate their definite purpose into action. When the meeting had been called to order, Samuel Adams locked the door, placed the key in his pocket, and calmly told those present that it was imperative a congress of the colonists be organised, and informed them that no man would be permitted to leave the room until the decision for such a congress had been reached. Here is more evidence of active faith. Through the influence of Hancock and Adams, the others present were induced to agree that, through the Correspondence Committee, arrangements would be made for a meeting of the First Continental Congress to be held in Philadelphia, September the 5th, 1774, almost 2 years before the actual signing of the Declaration of Independence. Remember this date, and remember the two determined men who brought it about, for if there had been no decision to hold a Continental Congress, there would have been no signing of the Declaration of Independence. Passive faith never would have led to this daring move. Hill: I must say that we need some of that brand of faith in our nation today. Carnegie: agitation was kept up by correspondence and by secret meetings between the members of the Mastermind Alliance organised by Hancock, Adams and Lee for almost 2 years, resulting in the famous meeting at Philadelphia in 1776. By this time, the mastermind had grown to 56 men. The meeting lasted for several days, during which those men engaged in the most stupendous round-table conversations known to modern civilization. On June the 7th, 1776, Richard Henry Lee recognised that the time for mere conversations had come to an end, and the time for action had arrived. He rose, addressed the chair, and to the startled assembly made this motion: Gentlemen, I make the motion that the United Colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they be absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connections between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought, to be totally dissolved. Out of that motion, based on active faith, was born the world's greatest nation. Out of that motion was born the spirit that gave Washington's soldiers the power to win over seemingly insurmountable difficulties. Study carefully what happened, and you will see that these men devoted nearly 2 years of highly concentrated effort to the preparation of their minds for the performance, through active faith, of a difficult and dangerous task. Hill, describing it as a difficult and dangerous task is putting it mildly. Each of those men was literally sticking his neck out, as the slang saying goes, for a hangman's noose as a traitor to the crown. Carnegie, I have told you this bit of history because it is in a similar manner that all great leaders condition their minds for unusual tasks. This is how men acquire self-confidence. This is an example of the method by which faith is developed through deeds. Remember the fact that action must follow the adoption of a definite purpose. Without action, plans and aims are fruitless. The 3 men who started America on the road to liberty and freedom made use of the self-same principles of achievement that must be used by the successful leader in business or in any other calling. In the development of self-confidence, as in all other worthy undertakings, one must begin with a motive based upon a definite purpose. Hill, I believe I now understand the procedure by which self-confidence may be acquired. Now, Mr. Carnegie, will you, for the purpose of emphasis, explain how you applied these principles in the crowning achievements of your career, when you converted all your holdings into the United States Steel Corporation? Carnegie, first I applied the principle of definiteness of purpose by reaching a decision to consolidate all my steel industry interests into one company and to sell the company. Second, having decided to sell, I called certain members of my mastermind group together, and we spent several weeks in analysis of the values of my properties in order that I might set a fair price for my interests. We also had to work out a plan by which to find buyers for the properties and arrange ways and means of approaching prospective buyers without placing ourselves at a great disadvantage, since the buyers would know in advance that we were desirous of selling. The complete plan represented the combined efforts of the members of my mastermind group who sat in on the discussions and myself, and it was so devised that instead of our being in the position of offering our properties for sale, we would be approached by the buyers with an offer to purchase the properties. This we accomplished with very little manoeuvring by arranging a dinner in New York City at which my chief mastermind aide, Charlie Swab, and a group of Wall Street bankers, whom we had chosen as prospective buyers, would be guests. Mr. Swab was to deliver a speech painting a vivid picture of the great possibilities of such a consolidation of my steel interests into one company as we had planned. The speech had all the earmarks of being spontaneous, as Swab made it clear that the plan he outlined could be carried out only by gaining my consent, and gave no indication that he already had that. The speech made such an impression that the meeting lasted into the late hours of the night, and before Swab left, the bankers present at the meeting, including J.P. Morgan, gained from him a promise to place the proposed plan before me and to do what he could to gain my consent to it. Not long after the deal had been closed and I had been paid off, did the bankers learn that the speech was carefully planned months in advance. Hill, from that story, I gather the fact that your confidence in your ability to sell your properties was so great that you planned every move well in advance of your knowledge as to who the actual buyers would be. Carnegie, every move was planned in advance, but we had a pretty good idea who our buyers would be. However, we planned this particular transaction no more carefully than we planned every business move we made in the operation of our steel industry. Faith has sounder legs to stand upon when it is backed by definite plans. Applied faith is never based on blind moves. Blind faith is something of which I know nothing. The only sort of faith I know anything about is that which is supported by some combination of facts or reasonable assumption of facts. One of the major purposes of a mastermind alliance is that of providing one with reliable knowledge upon which to build plans. With such knowledge in hand, you can readily see how easy it is to develop that state of mind known as faith. Hill, that statement appears to contradict your earlier statement that supreme self-confidence is based on belief in infinite intelligence. If you do not recognise blind faith and have faith only in provable facts or knowledge, how do you justify your faith in infinite intelligence, since definite knowledge on this subject is elusive? Carnegie, you have made the mistake of assuming that there is no source of definite knowledge about infinite intelligence. As a matter of fact, the existence and the working principles of infinite intelligence are more easily proved than any other fact. Hill, will you please give me a few reasons why you hold this belief? Carnegie, in the first place, the orderliness of all natural law and all that we know of the universe is indisputable evidence that there is back of all this a universal plan, a form of intelligence far superior to that which we human beings understand. I can see it in the predictable movements and positions of the stars and planets, which can be calculated and foretold hundreds of years in advance. I can see it in the mystery that brings together two small cells, each no larger than the fine point of a pin, and converts them into the marvellous machine we call man, carrying in those two small particles of energy, matter, and intelligence, a portion of the ancestral qualities of man for generations back. There are many theories which are not provable, but infinite intelligence is not one of them. And I may as well tell you here that I believe the power with which we think and reason is nothing other than a minute portion of infinite intelligence functioning through man's brain. It is fairly obvious that infinite intelligence works through the minds of men and uses the most practical, natural medium available for carrying out the plans of the Creator. Once you acquire this viewpoint, you will be better prepared to depend upon faith in carrying out the task I have assigned you. You mentioned the fact that the task I have given you calls for more self-confidence than you possess. Here then, I am offering you a viewpoint which, if you will accept it and act upon it, will provide you with a form of inspiration vastly greater than self-reliance. It will give you access to an abundance of faith with which your success is assured even before you begin your task. I sincerely hope that you will open your mind to the guidance of this faith. Hill, at the close of our last discussion, Mr. Carnegie, you made the statement that infinite intelligence works through the minds of men and uses the most practical natural medium available for carrying out the plans of the Creator. While you were speaking, the thought was running through my mind that the human brain, with its intricate system for receiving and sending thoughts, is the greatest of all the evidence of your theory that infinite intelligence is the real source of the power of thought. Is this correct? And I believe it to be. It is equally true that the greatest of all sources of power for the solution of our problems of life is that which is available through our own minds. Have I caught your viewpoint on this subject, sir? Carnegie, you have, and now I wish to take you for a little trip into the inner workshop of my mind, where you will be permitted to take inventory of the vast resources of the mind as I see them. And I am going to leave that there. So that's part 1 of Employ Applied Faith. Okay, guys, I will catch up with you soon. So take care. Much love.